Well, it's nice to be back on the winners list after last week. We'll get to that shortly. Once again, welcome to the Titus and Sergio Variety Hour podcast. I'm Sergio Paradise, and here he is, the star of the real Full Monty. It's Titus O'Reilly.
Oh, God,
Didn't you do that last night? Wasn't that you up the front next to BT?
Oh, I didn't watch it at all. Even the ads were too much for me. But then when they mentioned BT was in it as well.
Well, I couldn't stand the whole idea.
Did you watch it?
My wife flipped it over fairly early in the piece, and I said, the only bit worth watching is going to be the last 5 minutes of this show.
Right.
Surely. Nobody cares about them learning how to dance, you know. It's just the last bit when they get the gear off.
But I'm imagining they didn't get the full gear off.
Well, they did, but of course you didn't see anything like the movie. It was the last shot frozen, you know, with the camera behind the stage. So you saw half a dozen bare asses, but in the front was all bright lights and
right. Well, that's probably for the
wheels and crackers.
That's probably for the best.
Oh yeah. Well,
I'm not saying the fact they didn't show it as well.
I must admit, I reckon the pyrotechnics up the front would have been very close to the action. But it rated. It rated. Did over 1 million viewers last night. Beat MasterChef. Beat the Ninjas.
That genuinely makes no sense to me whatsoever.
My theory is nobody would have watched the first 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's
everyone watched the last 5. But never mind.
I live in a different world to many. I should just begin by not only thanking our supporters, but due to being yelled at by people in Brisbane, which is something I actually always enjoy, I've got a Brisbane date.
I saw that.
I'm happy to announce that I've added, which is the 5th of September at the Sit Down Comedy Club. So
good spot, the Sit Down Comedy Club.
Yeah, so if you're so Brisbane people, you complained when I didn't have a date originally, which I was always working on, but now they have one. Come on down, and then on this Saturday I'm in Hobart, which I believe is in. This is a one I'm doing a bit earlier than the rest of them because I've got other dates coming up. But that's this Saturday in Hobart, so at Jokers. So I think there's a few tickets left. It's almost sold out.
Will that help Tasmanians bid for an
Absolutely.
AFL team?
If they don't show up,
you'll know they're doing.
I think it's almost sold out. There's a couple of tickets left, but so if you want to come, get on and buy a ticket,
it's a fun place, Tassie, I'm told.
Well, it should be interesting.
It wasn't in the past.
Well, the economy's going well too. Yeah. I saw they're skipping ahead.
I don't know how or why, because for many years they've been complaining that everybody grows up and once they're beyond their teens, they'll nick off to the mainland. But something's going on down there.
Well, the fact is you can't.
Maybe this could be a Titus O'Reilly-led economy.
the thing is, it's so expensive in Sydney and Melbourne that.
Well, that's true.
Tasmania is now sort of just a cheap outer suburb. It's cheaper to commute from Tasmania than to live in some parts of Melbourne and Melbourne and Sydney. So that should be fun. Looking forward to that. We're also we were chatting before we came on air about a live podcast show or shows as well that we're going to do too. So we'll have news on that soon. Amazingly, as we sit here on a Monday morning, Carlton fans are happy.
Can you believe that?
No.
Did you watch the game? This is one I did not see anything of.
I watched pretty much everything this weekend. I had it all going. And
I flipped it over at halftime. It was pretty tight at halftime, only a couple of points in it. And then a bit later, I flipped it over. Jesus, Carlton are 40 points in front here. They're going to win.
And didn't the Carlton supporters get lippy?
Yeah.
It was amazing. You'd swear they'd won the premiership.
You think Richmond supporters, yeah.
It was amazing. They were I had them all tweeting at me like...
I know.
We weren't even playing them.
I know when you're no good and you haven't won a game for a long while.
Yeah.
Well, we know what that feels like. But you can't... get too cocky after
when it's your second win
Coast.
and it's round 19. Well, also the Gold Coast...
You're still number one draft pick. You're still on the bottom.
It felt good because it felt better than it normally would for the Blues too because Sydney had lost to the Gold Coast Suns too. Like if the Gold Coast had got smashed by Sydney last week, it'd be like winning in the, that
is very true.
It would have been like winning in the northeastern AFL, not, So it was kind of a bizarre one, but the Suns just seem to have this ability that each time you think they've hit rock bottom, they're like, that ain't rock bottom.
We'll lower
because
that.
This is arguably the worst Carlton team ever.
Well,
it's the worst season they've almost had.
Saying last week, knowledgeable Carlton people saying, we're not only the worst Carlton side ever, this is possibly the worst team ever to play in the AFL.
Yeah.
And,
which is a big call. But watching them reminds me of watching Melbourne in the darkest days. Like, they are that bad. And except the only difference is they have Patrick Cripps.
Yeah. But even in the darker days of Melbourne, every now and then things would click just because they're an AFL team and they're not as bad as everyone thinks.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when Dean Bailey was coaching, I remember they beat the Swans at the MCG by about 80 points, and Paul Roos saying about Melbourne, they're the new powerhouse. Yeah, really?
So it was kind of interesting watching Carlton. And Carlton, what they showed, I guess, is what, and it's whether it's false hope or not, is this is how these young players will be able to play in a few years as they're up against, they just can't do it against AFL quality opposition. For the Suns, it just showed how bad is Sydney going at the moment?
Yeah, exactly. They're no good. And
the Suns just looked all over the shop. They just looked completely disinterested.
They've fallen over and they look like the team who knows their season's over. They're all shot, Their captain's leaving, Maybe Stephen May leaves next year. They're all in disarray. Nobody really cares anymore.
Yeah.
And they're playing accordingly, despite the fact they played pretty well last week.
Well, that's the weirdest thing. That's the bizarrest point out of it all. But so Carl, look,
good luck to them. But
good luck with your project. Well, it's interesting because they had that week before, the week leading up to it, they had the news about new revelations about the salary cap cheating back in the day, which was the least surprising news I think we've ever had. And Carlton cheated back then. We all know
what
that.
I did love about that is that John Elliott said on his son Tom's radio show on 3AW, "No, I take absolutely no responsibility for what happened during my administration as president."
Well, I think he was saying that he's not responsible for their problems now.
No.
And I would say that that's true. He set him back 10 years, but 10 years have been and gone now.
Gone, yeah.
If you don't need to look for... people act like, why are Carlton so bad? You ask Carlton supporters and they know why. Their list management, they traded away everyone good. And then you look at the Malthouse was the biggest wrecker of that club. Even Ratton wasn't. You look at who Malthouse traded in and traded out. Yeah. It's amazing.
Everybody's done it. There's no need for us to go through all the names, but you can put together what would be a very competitive side of
from the cast-offs
who left Carlton, cast-offs.
Yeah.
And then they've been replaced by, too many ex-GWS list cloggers,
I think, though, the thing is that what Silvani and Bolton and et cetera are trying to do is going to take time, and it's that they've had to almost go back to the start after Malthouse.
Yeah.
And so I feel like they're copping a lot of the heat for decisions that were nothing to do with them.
Yeah. Well, see, other clubs have a rebuild. They've gone back to ground zero almost.
But they sort of have to, and Carlton has to do that to get past this. It's almost like every time Carlton have started to do that, they've suddenly got this rush of blood of, we could get the Messiah and be back to our glory years tomorrow. Yeah. So they go and got Judd, and they went and got Malthouse later on. It's like they don't seem to have the patience to go back to the start.
I fear that this year they might trade pick one for what will turn out to be another dud.
Well, that's what I think is crazy because, Melbourne traded to get Dom. They end up with Dom Tyson and Christian Salem, which has been not bad. But then you look at Kelly running around and you go, gee, I think Kelly would make a bit of a difference. Like, you could find those other players through other means. Well, and then I look at Rayner up for the Lions. He was number one pick. And people were saying, that's like, would you trade him for two lesser players? You go, no way watching him play this year. No way would you. I know number one is fraught, but it's also...
Well, even they didn't rate particularly... Well, some judges that this year's draft was all that strong. They reckon the next one, upcoming, is a belter. But you look at the top 10 from this year, and there has not been a dud amongst them. Even like Stevenson at Collingwood, A lot of people weren't going to touch him because they reckon he's got a heart issue. He's a fantastic player. Jesus, he's quick.
Oh, so good. Because you were at the game. We'll talk about that. Cass Lowry wrote in, can Carlton get the AFL to open the roof on Etihad Stadium and get it to rain so they have more of a chance? They just play better when it's terrible weather. Too Long in the Bush wrote, please articulate your thoughts and feelings when... I'll put this in the wrong section. I'll come back to this. Okay. The other thing, let's go to the the Collingwood-Richmond game.
Okay, before we analyse the game, can I tell you something that I saw before the game?
So this is before Richmond and Collingwood at the MCG.
At the MCG on Saturday. I had a mate down from Sydney.
Yeah.
I'd organised a MCC visitors ticket for him.
Oh, you're a good man.
And I said, look, they open the gates at 11. It's going to be pretty busy. So let's get there early. We might have to stand in the queue, but we'll get the spot we want. So we get there. I said, look, we'll meet there about 10:15. As it was, there was no traffic. Got to the park. Was there about 10 to 10. Walked down to gate 2. And there's a bit of a crowd there, but not a big one.
Yeah.
And standing there, I see two blokes, probably mid-40s, in the full Collingwood outfits. Both of them have got, those little soft pack eskies, like that you get from supermarkets and stuff.
Mm.
They're both drinking cans of Jim Beam and Coke. It's 10 to 10 Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And I thought, there you go. They've started early.
The traditional Collingwood.
Yeah, that's your lead up. Rather than a nice latte from over the road. They're on the Jim Beam and Coke cans. I thought, okay, yeah, that's whatever. And then the other one reaches into his backpack and pulls out 2 empty iced tea bottles. They unscrew them and they decant 5 cans of Jim Beam and Coke into the iced tea bottle, straight into the backpack, then into the line. In they go. They get the backpack searched. Yeah, in you go. So they've snuck into the members about 5 litres of Jim Beam and Coke. And I thought, geez, I'd like to keep an eye on these blokes by about. And this is at 10 o'clock
in the morning. Yeah.
These guys will be good by 3/4 time. And I thought, geez,
so that works. Security.
It worked.
See, when I was getting wanded the other day, they do the metal detector wands on everyone now going into the MCG. I said, it was either Etihad or MCG, I can't remember, but it was only a few weeks ago. And the guy's wanding me is chatting to me. Yeah. And I said, it's much harder to smuggle the hip flask in now. It's un-Australian what you guys do, joking. And he laughed, but then he went extra careful and totally was just everywhere.
But at least you were still able to get your homemade shiv in
there. It was an interesting...
so that was a good start to the day. And I thought, that's put me in a good mood for the rest of the day watching this Collingwood.
So it would have been a good atmosphere. I was watching on telly. I didn't go.
It was fantastic. And it was a good game of footy.
The first 3 quarters were great.
Yeah. You could tell, though, at 3/4 time that Richmond have been a lot cleaner the entire game.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've seen Richmond play live this year.
Yeah.
And they have such confidence in each other there now. Yeah. They're a bit like... Remember Geelong in their glory years where it didn't matter what trouble a player got into, they just knew they'd have a teammate on either side.
Yeah.
You get just about handball blind and know you'd hit a teammate.
Yeah.
Richmond have got that going for them at the minute. And you could just tell at 3/4 time they're probably about to put the foot down and blast them off the park, which is what they did.
See, Richmond remind me, I was thinking we've talked about before how they hold their structure for 4 quarters and they just hold it and they wait for you to, they know that very few teams are going to be able to not make mistakes against their structure of pressing up and keeping the ball and their forward 50 and putting that enormous pressure on for a full 4 quarters.
Was brutal.
And that's what sort of happens. And they remind me remember that scene and it's almost like Hardwick has had to convince them to do that and stay with it and that it will just eventually work for you rather than not playing team roles and just going. Yeah. And it kind of reminds me that ability to hold your structure even when it's tight and close, but know that it will eventually work for you, that the opposition will break down under it. They'll cave, and you just have to have almost the... Yeah. It reminds me of that scene in Braveheart.
Oh, yeah.
Where being attacked by the English cavalry.
Yeah.
And the way it always was, people just ran or they tried to fight them proactively. Yeah. But instead, he got them all to kneel down and at the last second hold and stick out their spears.
The sharpened spears for the horses to
and
run
not
into.
Move. And he's like, hold.
Yeah.
And it reminds me a bit of that. Like, it's this... Don't do what you would instinctively think you need to do, which is massively overchase the ball, massively just hold your positions, hold your structure.
Trust me on this.
And let them destroy themselves on you rather than you try and take them on.
It's a pretty good analogy.
And, all good analogies involve Braveheart.
Yeah, of course.
It's the best AFL teaching. If you want to learn AFL tactics, Braveheart is the best movie to watch.
And the other analogy,
but you know what I mean?
It's that very same scene is when they lift up their kilts and bare their asses. That's what
Richmond fans.
That's the AFL to Tasmanian football. But I tell you, watching Richmond, I was still amazed at how good they are.
Yeah.
And this is not a rap on Toby Nankervis, but without an A-League ruckman, an A-list ruckman. Nankervis just got pumped.
But he does enough. He does enough without.
He does a bit around.
He's a hero of mine after he did that to BT last week.
Yeah, I know, but he doesn't take marks and he doesn't gather the ball on the ground. He doesn't. And he doesn't hit it to advantage for Richmond, but they still seem to get plenty of clearances.
It's often overrated, hitting to advantage.
Yeah, it works for when Grundy killed him on Saturday.
Oh yeah,
and you watch Max Gawn on a good day. It makes a hell of a difference.
No, the really top one does, but a lot of times if the midfield's just a better midfield, they'll learn to ruck further, and you see that happen.
If Richmond had a Gawn or a Grundy, they would be absolutely unbeatable.
Yeah. Collingwood, in fairness, they had a terrible run of injuries during the game. Already they got heaps out with Dunn and Treloar, and Jamie Elliott did his hamstring in the reserves again. At what point do you think with Elliott do they just go?
You wonder about Elliott. I mean, that's his whole year's gone through soft tissue injuries, and they've had a million of them at Collingwood, as well as poor old Lyndon Dunn. Yeah, did the ACL. And
they would have the. There's no team that's had as bad a run of injury,
I reckon,
and the fact they're still where they are.
They can't win the flag now, Collingwood. I reckon.
Well, they
purely because of that, the injuries. If they had a full list available, you'd back them home.
Well, they lost Jeremy Howe. He got kneed there by Darcy Moore, but that was a big on the day. That didn't help. And then they also had Scharenberg go down with that terrible, looks like his third ACL. Yeah. So, which is, you just have those players that just seem to cop it like one, So in some ways, I thought it was amazing how well Collingwood, not only this season, but just staying with the Tigers for 3 quarters. Yeah. And they're doing that thing. I reckon they're doing that thing quite well, where they stick to their game plan longer than most, and it works on the MCG, so they know what they're doing. For Richmond, it's the 18th win in a row at the MCG, which equals the Melbourne team of the 50s, which I know you and I watched a lot of play. And probably the highlight I thought was Jack Higgins' goal, obviously.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Now, this got a lot of people upset. A lot of people would it was a throw.
I had like a Twitter feud going with strangers on this yesterday.
Well, that's just your Twitter feed.
I know it's not all the time.
Feuding with strangers will be your title of your biography. that and the follow up to Beachside Bars.
The follow up to Bucket of Coronas.
So. You thought it was the AFL umpiring department have given it the old clearance that it's a goal.
I reckon, I genuinely think it's not a throw when the ball goes from hand to boot. Like even if, let's say...
So the manner in which that happens isn't the part, it's whether it went from his hand straight and connected with his foot.
If he'd flicked it up the way he did...
And missed.
And caught it,
yes,
it would have definitely been a throw and incorrect disposal. But so when a player gets tackled and the ball pops out, they haven't handballed it, they haven't disposed of it correctly. Yeah. It just pops out. But if you then sling your foot at it and connect, it can be play on.
Yeah.
And none of the rules say that anything about the throw except as an incorrect disposal. So my theory is that it went from hand directly to foot. And while there's no doubt there was a bit of a throw involved, but it wasn't a throw in an illegal sense.
Like to another player or just straight onto the ground or something.
You could easily say, he tossed it up in the air and that constitutes a throw. But it was not an illegal throw. In my mind.
Well, it wasn't the minute his foot connected, it's not a throw.
No, exactly.
Basically, is what the AFL ruled it to be.
Yeah, and just Higgins. I mean, to be able to think that quickly and to be able to pull it off was remarkable in itself.
Well, it was interesting because he's always a good interviewer. He said Glenn Maxwell inspired him because we see a lot of this in cricket now when they're catching near the boundary line. They think they're going to go out, so they throw it back in and then go back and catch it. He said, if it had happened another 100 times, I probably wouldn't have thought of doing that again. He said, I was sort of running out of play and I took the ball and nearly went into the post. I sort of thought of Glenn Maxwell, so I tried to keep it in play. Because I was at the MCG, I saw the crowd and I just thought, screw it, I'm going to do it.
Well, that's right. I don't know if you saw late Saturday night after the Melbourne game, Dermot Brereton on Fox Footy. He said he used to coach Higgins at junior level and under 13s and under 14s. And he said even then he had a football brain that was years and years ahead of every other kid.
Right.
He said, I think he made the point that it was strictly a football brain. He wouldn't maybe get him to do his tax return. But he said he always had that ability to think ahead of the play, which at junior level is what made him stand out.
Well, Trent's written in, can Sergio give an explanation, like his weight for age racing explanation, on whether or not Jack Higgins' goal was the throw? So I think we've done that.
I think I've just done that inadvertently. But I actually looked up the AFL record.
Right.
Not the record, the rules on this. And it does say throwing can be the act of propelling the football with one or both hands in a scooping motion.
Right.
So, if you pick it up and flick it out, that's a throw. A player does not throw the football if the player hits, punches, or taps the football without taking possession of it. So you could arguably say that's what Higgins did.
Well, that is what he did, and that's what they've ruled. He didn't take
possession of the ball. He flicked it.
No one else took possession. Yeah, it just was a straight...
And he connected with his foot.
Yeah, it was a goal.
Otherwise,
to me, the Gary Ablett mark that everyone talks about, that to me was not a mark.
No, it wasn't.
So that's, but...
It still makes a great
Higgins,
photograph.
Yeah, but Higgins wasn't as controversial as that to me. It was actually cleaner. Like, I haven't...
The best thing about
100% of Richmond supporters say it was a goal.
Well, I was about to say that one of the best things about it on Saturday was seeing the sheer anger of 50,000 Collingwood supporters. Because even sitting around where we were, all the Collingwood, when they showed the replay, everyone was applauding and that's not a goal. That was a throw. A bloke behind me was spitting with anger. He's going, if we lose by less than a goal, it's on your head. And then he actually named the goal umpire.
and then he got out an iced tea. What was the crowd like? More Richmond, more Collingwood, or pretty even?
I reckon it was about pretty even.
Right. Yeah.
On the day.
The other game that was it sets Richmond up to be. Richmond are obviously the ones to beat this year, especially after the Eagles failed so poorly down in Tasmania. You'd say that Collingwood, at the most, the injuries have made them have to unearth a lot of really good players, funnily enough.
I think it'll stand them in good stead for next year and the year after, but I don't think they can go all the way this year just purely because of the injuries.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Whereas,
they're still competing.
They could.
Yeah. The Ballarat game, I was watching this on television and boy was like, I'm always glad not to be in Ballarat. Yeah. In winter especially. I've actually been to Ballarat quite a few times. I don't mind Ballarat, but in winter, it is freezing.
Well, I flicked it over very, very briefly and I heard one of the commentators say, it is icy here today.
Well, it was 4 degrees.
You are in Ballarat.
Yeah, it was 4 degrees at some point.
It's the leading manufacturing and distribution hub methamphetamine. No wonder
but it has its downsides too. It was 4 degrees at points. It was incredibly windy, raining and hail at different points of the game. So naturally, with substandard lighting at Mars Stadium, as it's called there, the AFL make it a twilight game.
Yeah, of course.
Just naturally. So I'm watching it on television, and even on television it looks stormy and dark. The clouds in the background look terrible. And then the lighting was not good, to the point where Ken Hinkley said he watched the closing stages of the game on television in the coach's box because he couldn't see the field from the coach's box. That's how dark it was. And I was like, not being able to see it was probably a blessing.
Yeah.
because the Bulldogs were terrible.
Yeah, they were. Do you remember, not the actual games, I think it was sort of the mid to late 60s. There's still great photos of it. Well, I think it could have been the Lake Oval when South Melbourne were playing St Kilda, and it was that foggy.
Yeah.
You could not see 20 metres ahead of you.
Yeah.
It was like that.
It was absolutely terrible. Like, why would you do it? And Damien Nolan wrote in, given the conditions in Ballarat and the AFL's utter determination to ensure the match went ahead, how soon will we see the AFL get hyper excited about expansion to Antarctica? I'll tell you what, there'd be about as many AFL fans in Antarctica as there is in China.
Yeah.
So the thing I thought about this is it's no wonder that the AFL couldn't get the lighting right, because this is a competition. Remember earlier in the year, one of our favourite stories was the AFLW game was played at Princes Park, and the lighting wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And then there was a men's pre-season game to be played there about a week later, and the AFL said, we're going to get extra lighting because there's more players on the field in the men's game.
Yeah.
And
the lamest excuse of all time.
That is not how light works. Like, we're not little people aren't black holes that absorb light. Like, you don't turn on an extra light because someone walked into the room, else walked into the room. You go, hang on, there's not enough lights on for two people in the room.
Exactly. I mean, you wonder who made that call. You say, remember that great line? He's so dense that light bends around him.
Well, that was the thing. Like, so it's
another thing just on that, like equivalent to the light. Over probably the last 8 or 10 weeks, the number of players at various grounds who have slashed their legs open on the LED screens around there. The AFL just announced that they're going to kind of fix it in 3 months' time.
Well, the best bit about that is Geelong announced down at Cardinia Park that they are going to narrow the field.
That's right, make the field
so
narrow.
That there's more room for the players to run out of bounds and not hit the LED. And
there's less chance of them running into
it. This shows there's no better example of money over football.
Yeah.
That we would prefer to protect the signage and have the game affected.
We would rather
than move the signs.
The playing surface smaller
than get rid of the advertising.
Or at the very least, spend a few grand and put a Perspex cover on them.
I know, that's the thing. Go to Bunnings, grab some Perspex.
It's not that hard.
It's not hard at all. One of the things, how close were you to having a full-blown, and I don't say this jokingly given your history, a heart attack, because I was pretty close, on Saturday night as Melbourne started out about as bad as you could get.
Yeah.
They were like, they looked like they were the school team for the school of the uncoordinated. The way they were just, and the fact that the Crows didn't bury them in the first half was amazing.
Yeah.
And then
a couple of individual efforts virtually kept them in it at half time.
And then Melbourne stormed them in the third, only to make it look like they were going to do what they did against Geelong. I was pacing. I was watching on TV at home. I was pacing in the room.
I kept yelling, "Not again!"
Yeah,
here we go again. And there was a couple of expletives in there. And then when it got down, that last few minutes, and I thought, looking at the thing, they need Adelaide. They need like 2 goals in 98 seconds. Easily doable. They'll kick a goal and then kick one after the siren. Only Melbourne could do that. But then we did sort of get out of jail.
Well, people are saying, the rain...
To answer your question, the ticker was beaten fairly smartly.
It's glad you had the operation earlier.
Yeah.
Because the thing about it, people say, the rain came and saved you. And I was like, Adelaide were better after the rain.
Yeah.
That was the weird thing. They scored more once the rain came.
As any player, if you think about it, when the ball gets that wet and the ground gets that wet, it's more predictable. The ball's not going to bounce at right angles. It's just going to go straight ahead. So if you use your brain, you can just move it up the field.
The other thing too is if you're like a team like Melbourne, it happens in either way. Like if your reputation is you're mentally weak and if we put enough pressure, we're in with a shot. It makes teams in that situation like Adelaide had no reason to give up. They kept coming the whole time. If you were playing Richmond and they're up by that much and there's a quarter to go, there's the seeds of doubt in the back of your mind that, we're probably gone here. With Melbourne, you never think that. Until Melbourne changed people's minds about that. Like, if Melbourne had gone on and kicked another 20 points, and won by 40. They need to do that a fair
goals.
few times to sort of... But it keeps Melbourne in it.
I really thought it's happening again. Here we go.
Too long in the bush rate. Please articulate your thoughts and feelings when Betts gathered 20 metres out with a minute to play. This is when he hit the post.
I honestly thought he's running into open goal. He ain't going to miss this, and I've just gone.
I still don't know how he missed that.
A million times he'll get that goal.
I still thought Melbourne was still in with a chance even if he'd kicked that, but it was getting too close to comfort.
It was getting too close to call. Even if he got it, I thought, well, this will really test them. Can they close it down? Can they get the stoppages, knock it back, get possession? But as soon as he hit the post, I thought, we're in here, we're fine, because we've got possession, we've got the kick out, it should be okay.
So Clayton Oliver was being interviewed afterwards, and he said one of the things he called Mark Soderstrom Wayne Carey, which I don't really
mistake to make.
And he also said that he'd given up drinking, and a lot of the players have. Apparently, Jordan Lewis said that the Hawthorn players often did that in the lead up to some of their premierships. So when he said that, they all went, "Yeah, no worries."
And Angus Brayshaw, he's done the same.
So they've all given up the booze.
They've given up the grog until the end of the season. Because I think as old Clayton Oliver sort of, he said, look, it might just, through September, give us just still a bit fresher 1 week,
Have you ever done a drinking ban?
Well, I'll tell you, when I played footy, one of the guys came back and suggested it, that to the club, that we have, until the end of the season, a ban on alcohol on Friday nights.
Just one night?
Yeah, Friday nights before
ahead of the game. Right, yeah.
That every player in the side should abstain from alcohol on Friday nights.
Right.
And that was put to the entire team, and it was voted down by the leadership group.
Were you part of the leadership group?
Well, I wasn't at that stage.
But you were lobbying hard.
Because everyone's going, a couple of beers Friday night makes no difference.
Yeah.
Whereas you think these days it probably does.
It would with elite athletes, I imagine.
Yeah.
Like,
not at our level.
At our level, we're professional drinkers. See, I always loved drinking more than the game. It was sort of an easy choice for me.
Times have changed. remember, I read in 1958 when Collingwood won the premiership, I think. Every player got an engraved ashtray.
Oh, really? That's great.
They all got a sterling silver ashtray. Collingwood logo and premiership player in 1958.
See, when Benson and Hedges first started sponsoring the cricket, they were the first major sponsor that Cricket Australia, or was in the Australian Cricket Board, ever really had, right? And
the Benson and Hedges Test Series.
Yeah, and there'd been other, I think, smaller sponsorships and arrangements around some of the clothing and stuff, but they were the first one that was giving them. And a lot of it was just giving cigarettes in kind to the players.
Yeah, exactly.
It just kept the players in cigarettes, and they just fag on all the time. Now if a player... Whether it's Warney used to do it, but if Jesse Hogan last year, they have one fag
at a music festival.
It's known. When before that was what they all used to do all the time.
Well, I remember St Kilda at 1 year because Philip Morris, the cigarette manufacturer, the giant, their big factory and office in Melbourne is in Moorabbin, just near St Kilda footy ground in Linton Street. And they sponsored St Kilda for 2 years, I think, and they had the Philip Morris logo on their jumpers. Yeah. Just as, So
do you think St Kilda means terrible all their history because they're too close to a cigarette factory and all the players could just get free cigarettes?
Well, I'll tell you what, there was always plenty of cartons for all the
flying around
at Moorabbin. If you needed a durry, just pop into the general manager's office.
One of the funny things I was reading about cigarettes is when they brought in the ban on cigarette advertising. Yeah. So, and the AFL and VFL then and other sort of sporting bodies all said this will be the death of sports, which it wasn't.
Ironically, it
wasn't. But globally, when they started banning cigarette advertising, and the cigarette companies all said, well, this will destroy us. What they actually found is, when you can't advertise, it means no new brands could come into the market because how would anyone know about them? So they suddenly, instead of having to, they had hundreds of millions of dollars of marketing budget they used to have to spend to keep their brands front of mind, and there was always new brands being launched, Suddenly, they didn't have to ever introduce a new brand. They didn't have to worry about anyone else introducing a new brand. Like if your brand was set, it was set forever then. And they poured all that money into either selling in the third world countries or buying like legitimate non-tobacco related businesses and kept them all afloat.
Yeah, and
so it actually helped them in a way.
Ditched the marketing departments. And then to reinforce that even more was down when it went to plain packaging, even more so. And because, you remember all the cigarette marketing. Remember, Winfield were always massive. With Paul Hogan.
Huge.
Anyhow,
Winnie Blues and that and Reds, they were more the working class.
Oh, yeah, tradies
sort of one. They were your Victorian bitter of cigarettes.
And I remember I used to have an old boss, and he used to smoke Ardith.
Right.
And I'd say, I said, why Ardith? I said, instead of Benson and Hedges, when only the best will do. And he goes,
Benson and Hedges is sort of the crown.
They were. And Peter Stuyvesant, the international passport to smoking pleasure. God, just it banged into your brain. My boss, he goes, Ardith. He said, they're half price.
Right.
He said, they're all the same.
Because I remember there were like the cheap brands too, like there was Holidays. They came in
50s.
They came in a pack of 50s, and I was convinced they were just the sweepings up of the tobacco that fell on the floor when they were making the other cigarettes.
And I think there's a guy who he used to smoke black and white 60s. He used to get, and the packet was like as big as a tissue box.
Smokers have the oddest habits too. Like I used to know this woman who smoked, and she would smoke half a cigarette and then put it out and discard it.
Right.
And she'd say, "Well, this means I'm smoking less." But then she would immediately pick up another cigarette and smoke half of it. And so instead of smoking less, in her mind she thought she was smoking less, but she really just went through a packet twice as quick and onto the next one.
It probably cost her a fortune.
Oh, well, back then it wasn't that expensive. Yeah. Like now that would bankrupt you in a week.
Oh yeah, it was in hospital last year. At one point, I thought I'm going to go down on the bottom floor. There was the canteen where you get a decent coffee rather than the junk they bring around to your room. I thought I'll pop down for coffee. So I got into the lift, and there's this young bloke, this punky looking guy. He just had this sort of air of arrogance and aggression,
a menace about him.
Yeah, menace. Yeah, the sort of bloke you'd cross the street to avoid. And he's in the lift, and he's got a cigarette, rakishly behind one ear, right? And then while the lift's moving, he takes it from behind his ear and puts it in his mouth. Yeah. And this is in a lift.
In a
hospital. Yeah. And it's a one-time in life I thought, geez, I wish I had a lighter in my pocket. I would have just lit it for him and hope he got caught for smoking in a lift because he has about a $5,000 fine. Oh, jeez. Couldn't wait to get out the front.
Well, anyway, this is the Titus and Sergio Cigarette Hour.
Brought to you by Benson and Hedges.
When only the best will do.
Join the Escort Club. 29 cents and you're a member. Remember that?
Oh, that was the.
Because I remember Tony Barber used to be the whistling guy for Escort cigarettes.
It used to be quite normal to be the face of cigarettes. I wonder if we'll look back at sports betting like that. Because I look at all the people that host or are the face of sports betting for footy and media. Yeah. You see Carey and Campbell Brown do a show together, and you're like, that would be exactly right. It's all like it.
I think you're right. I was going to say it before too. I reckon in 20 years' time, we'll look back at all the sports betting ads on TV and just, laugh at it the way we laugh at
and how could Greg Tone wrote in, after the Geelong game, I ordered new snow chains for the Range Rover. Now after this Saturday, I'm just wondering how to store them so they don't tangle. I wouldn't be putting them away yet.
Nah.
Greg.
Yeah, Greg, you can get hooks for them at Bunnings to put them up in your garage. But yeah, if I was you, I'd keep them in the back of the rangy.
Now, the Dees play the Suns. If they beat the Suns, you'd be like, they just have to beat the Suns. If they lose to the Suns like they did to St Kilda, that lost to St Kilda.
Has there been a bigger danger game for Melbourne against
the St Kilda one? The St Kilda one that we lost.
Exactly the sort of game Melbourne will lose. The Suns at the G.
John Anderson from the Herald Sun wrote a little piece. Last week it came up that there was a rumour that a Channel 7 commentator had his wife counting his minutes on air, basically, to see how much FaceTime he was getting
compared
to other
his fellow commentators.
So Eddie Maguire and Luke Darcy were on the Triple M Hot Breakfast, were discussing who could this be, and they outed Brian Taylor as the person.
Discussing this the other morning.
And but BT's furious. He strenuously denies this is true in any way, shape, or form. But he actually went on their show and Eddie was away.
Yeah.
But went off at Luke Darcy, and it was kind of done in a slightly jokey fashion. But you could sort of tell it wasn't really.
Well, when I was listening, I'm thinking, how much of this is the theatre? Because there's plenty of on-air media arguments by radio people, and
it's like wrestling.
Both sides, yeah. It's like professional wrestling. You know who's going to win, and it doesn't really matter, and it's not true anyway.
Yeah, they pretend they're arguing. Yeah. But John Anderson said...
I think you're right. There was a bit more to it.
John Anderson actually wrote, you can be excused for sometimes thinking the supposed rifts that occur in the media world are nothing more than orchestrated stunts in search of ratings. Then there's the Brian Taylor reaction this week when Luke Darcy, his colleague on Triple M and Triple M, outed him as the commentator had been instructing his wife to keep a tally of his on-air screen time. Take it to the bank that Taylor was livid with Darcy and relations remain extremely frosty, irrespective of any spin that is put on it. Watch this space.
Well, did you hear them again on the Friday last week?
Mm.
They got Lee Simon in.
Yeah,
who's
run Triple M for
he's run Triple M football since it started 20 years ago, and he actually brought in a sheet of paper from the very first year when they had it, when BT was his first year commentary and he was doing Triple M football.
Yeah, he
actually had written down how many minutes he had per quarter compared to Eddie Maguire, because the two of them were doing it together.
Yeah,
and of course it was like 21 minutes to Eddie and 8.5 to BT. And as Lee said, he said, well, what are you going to do? Tell Eddie? He said, so they maintain that this is true, this latest story.
BT has form in this area.
In this for 20 years.
Triple M do not, yeah, so it's sort of interesting that they've just outed him.
Yeah.
I think people, though, look at the...
You can get away with plenty at Triple M.
I know. If he threatened to drown a woman, he'd be fine. But counting your minutes on air, no. But don't you think... I look across the media landscape of football and I just despair at some of it. Like there are some people on it who are very good. I'm not like everyone's terrible.
No.
But you look at some of them, the sameness and the people who... It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, I keep waiting for like a new generation. And the amount of these guys, you know who I'm sick of almost the most at the moment, and there's honestly too many to name, is the football's terrible now. It was so great back in the day.
Yeah, a bit over that myself.
And, you know, I don't even watch football anymore. You get all those guys that I don't even watch football anymore, and it's all congested now. Yeah. And I just look at it and go, I can bring like, in the 90s, flooding was destroying the game. Yeah. Paul Roos of Sydney Swans, even when they won the premiership, Demetrio said they are ruining the game. We're going to have to look at... Like, you can get articles. When I was doing my first book, The History of Australian Sport, I was looking at and I was finding congestion articles from, like, the 19th century.
Yeah.
Like, the first 20, 30 years of AFL, of Australian rules football. So, they just keep saying it, and then you go, but... Why do we keep all watching it then? Like, you're remembering... People remember this magical past that never existed.
Perpetuating things that now the AFL feel obliged, and they've got all those highly paid consultants and execs who now feel obliged to form committees to change the game so it's better. Whereas you look at, even just the round just went... Richmond Collingwood, I don't barrack for either side, but geez, it was a good game to watch the other day.
Yeah.
Adelaide, Melbourne. There's always a couple of crap games. There's always a couple of absolute
Well, that's
crackers.
The other thing. You used to not get every game, but also when they show on Fox Footy, if you watch the like classic matches they show, they never pick they pick these amazing games. So people watch it and go, oh, how good was 90s football? And you go, well, they're not going to show as a classic match the one where so-and-so got belted by 60 points, just in a run-of-the-mill nothing
They'll show
match.
Essendon Hawthorn when it was 26 goals to 23.
That's right. They'll show the Paul Salmon shootout.
Footscray versus Carlton in the rain when it was 6 goals to 1.
Yeah, or even they don't show something where it's like a 30-point win to someone where it's just nothing that exciting. It's just a regulation win to a better side. So you get this like rose-coloured tinted glasses view, but the problem is the media keep hiring all these people that say this all the time, and I'm just like, I don't mind being critical of the AFL. You and I are, but our underlying premise isn't footy's terrible.
No. I mean, we'd like to say as critical as we can be. It's with a genuine affection for the game.
Yeah, we actually watch we go and watch, and and it's just you kind of. I've never got this. The game was once so much better. And the other thing that annoys
me too about the footy media landscape in the last couple of years or few years is that they tend to hire ex-players who have been terrific players and pass the AFL/media good bloke test, regardless of whether they're any good on air or not.
Yeah, that's right.
And occasionally, a beauty comes through, like a Jimmy Bartell or stuff, who is really good and gives you a look at the game that you wouldn't think of because you've never played at that level.
Yeah.
But then you get some others that, they're good blokes and they were terrific players, but they just...
Cameron Ling's the greatest example of someone who is,
He's just not a good broadcaster and he brings nothing to the Channel 7's coverage.
No, he says...
As good a bloke as he is.
He says the most obvious comment you could say.
Yeah.
It's... Anyway. So anyway, it's interesting that watching. Now, getting away from football, Cricket Australia, who... have just been having a cracker of a year.
Yeah. They've almost topped themselves this just today.
So they sacked a female employee who campaigned for abortion reform on social media, saying that, and this is in Tasmania because there's been some changes down there, meaning some women have had to be forced to travel to Melbourne to have an abortion. And they've come out and said that Cricket Australia have said that by saying these, she's upset the Tasmanian government, and therefore she's been sacked, moved on.
By Cricket
now
Australia.
She's waived. Her name's Angela Williamson. She's waived her right to confidentiality to speak out on this issue, and she was told the tweet had damaged her relationship with the government. Now I find it hard. Surely people can talk in a personal capacity, but also if she was working at a hospital or working for a government health body, I could understand maybe that, she has to continue a working relationship with the government and all this. But this isn't the last time I checked
the government or
but also
there,
abortion's not she was a manager of public policy and government relations, but it's not like she was tweeting about cricket policy or sports policy and criticising the government on that. So, we're saying that if you're in a government relations role at all, which is probably the common sense view, but it is almost a shame, you can't comment about any topic, even if it's not related to what you're working with the government on. You've got to agree, or you've got to agree. If she tweeted support for the government, no one would be complaining.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's what these companies are saying. They go, well, you can't say anything disparaging about the government.
You've got to follow the party line on every single thing.
Even about issues completely unrelated to your job and the area of expertise.
So she's lost her job at Cricket Australia, but presumably she'll still be able to tweet her opinions in the Northern Territory leagues or in Canada.
That's right. If David Warner had done this, he'd be sacked. But because he just cheated in front of everyone, he's just
he'll be back. She'll be back.
So anyway, that's an interesting. Cricket Australia, to me, they just seem to handle everything,
badly. Between them and the NRL. I just travelling beautifully.
Well, yeah. Also, I'd add Swimming Australia in here because they seem to have problems all the time. So, Swimming Australia, Emily Seebohm has left the Australian swimming team camp. Have you been following this? This has exploded on the social medias, but also now into the general media, which is she's broken up with. As you would know, because I know you follow intimately who's dating who in the swimming world.
I couldn't even tell you what swimming stroke Emily Seebohm does, but I know all about her boyfriend.
So Mitch Larkin and her were dating, and then they have broken up. Now, she tweeted, or Instagrammed rather, a bunch of things around suggesting that they'd broken up and also suggesting that there'd been an affair within the that Mitch had an affair with another Australian swimmer who haven't been named, and we don't know. And we don't know if that's true. That's just what she's been saying. She said, due to current events that have occurred, Mitch Larkin and I have decided to end our relationship. And then she's posted things like, something I learned about people, if they do it once, they'll do it again. Do you find that true about people, Serge?
Well, I just know, generally speaking, that swimmers, especially the Australian swimmers, they're like a bunch of horny wolves at the best of time, especially when they're on site at an Olympics or Pan Pacs or something.
This is not surprising you.
No, I think it's the fact they're getting around in.
But young fit people in bathers find each other attractive.
Yeah, I mean, who'd have thought?
It's a world we don't know. Luckily, I can go through life without this being a problem for me.
Yeah.
So anyway, she hasn't shown up to they've all got a swimming training camp out of the Pan Pacific Championships, so she's not going to be there. She's doing training separately, basically. Now, originally it was Swimming Australia was sort of accused by various people that they had told her not to show up to the camp. Like
she's been banned, kicked out of the camp.
Yeah, now they're saying that that's not the case. That they've given every consideration to the well-being of our people, they say, and that she hasn't been told not to come, that it's just been a discussion of what she would like to do as well.
Well, I don't think she has been banned completely. She was the designated go and pick up the Stillnocks girl for the team. She's still got that.
She still managed to keep that, has she? It's a harder job since all the prescriptions, requirements and stuff.
You've got to look for all the team. Like, who prefers the tablets to the capsules?
Now, Emily Seebohm has an interesting background in that she was the one that at London she blamed social media, her addiction to social media for not swimming as well as she would have liked. And then at the Commonwealth game when she got silver and then a bronze when she was expected to probably get gold, she then blamed the media for that, for not being effusive enough when she won silver.
That's right.
So the Australian media, she said, when she won silver, said, it was a bit of a disappointment because we're expecting gold. And she suddenly said, well, that's why she got bronze the next day, because she was sort of, her mind was thrown.
And the addiction to social media, that spoiled her Olympic run.
Yes.
And it's interesting that she's now burst all this out via Instagram.
That's right, Lou. She sort of, I don't know, like call me old-fashioned. Yeah. Would you comment on your private life in this way, especially if you're a well-known person on social media?
I doubt it very much. I mean, it's like when celebrities put out a press release to say, "Would you please respect our privacy at this time?"
So anyway, that's it's. I always get a feeling that the Australian swimming team, it's one step away from being a teen drama.
Oh, it's absolutely right. I was going to say that they're always just, 2 feet ahead of complete and utter disaster.
There appears to be no professionalism. I know there's a dedication to the individual. There's a professionalism individually towards, the discipline of getting up every morning and all that sort of stuff. But they seem to just have this. It's like school camp every year. It's been going on back to London 2012 and before that. And they always
call it the Australian team, and I guess it is in some regard. But swimming is
not a team sport.
It is more an individual sport than golf or tennis, really.
Yeah. And then you can't even really have a chat while you're doing it.
Well, that's right. And it is just a hotbed of scandal and drugs and sex and. As you say, it's a soap opera.
It is. I mean, even going back further, you had Nick Darcy belting that other guy going to, almost get lucky to not go to jail for it. You had Steph Rice and Eamon Sullivan breaking up, and it was a big thing. Like
Steph Rice and then she was with the American basketball.
Was she with Kobe and was she with
Kobe
Michael
Bryant,
Phelps? But it's just, I mean, that's not her fault. That was just stuff happening. But even just, there's been breakups before. This is not the first time. Like, what other sport do you have this sort of stuff going on all the time?
And it seems, without belittling either blokes, is that so many of the swimmers that once they finish their swimming career, they find it more difficult to get back into normal life than most.
The entitlement. But they're entitled even before that even happens, so it's sort of not surprising. It's a weird sport.
Ian Thorpe had his ups and downs, and that all because of his difficulty in coming out as being gay and what have you, and then
I thought he handled a lot better than most of the others.
Yeah, but
and
so
you could argue he's had a more difficult path to tread than some of the others, and he's done it better than most. But, I mean, Steph Rice has been pretty good overall. She had a few weird moments. She had a couple of homophobic tweets that I thought were more just stupid than anything else. But then
she's grown up a bit.
Example.
Grant Hackett. I mean, he's your classic example. And who's the other guy? Baby Huey. What's his name? Grant Hewlett or whatever his name is. The one that had the jail drug problems with his wife. Cocaine when he was busted at the races, and
Jeff Hugel.
Jeff Hugel. I mean, they just seem to for the number of swimmers, elite swimmers that we have. Yeah. There seems to be a pretty high proportion.
Well, what about the missile?
The missile.
I mean, has there been any greater fizzer
fall from grace? He's like, you know, when you see one of those North Korean rockets when they go about 100 feet in the air and then come straight back.
Exactly. Unlike North Korean rockets, he's not going to get any better. You put on the agenda Brian Lake on Survivor. Now, I knew he was going to be on Survivor. Has it aired yet?
No, it starts next week, I think.
You're much more into this.
I didn't know he was even going to be on Survivor.
Oh, didn't you? Because that was why he was went to Japan, I think, afterwards, or played with it. Because it was after he'd filmed Survivor.
They just released yesterday a photo of all the contestants on the new Survivor.
Oh, you didn't know that was why.
And there's a couple of interesting ones. Lydia Lassila, the gold medal aerial skier. I'll give her a good shake at that. She's as smart as a whip, little Lydia.
You knew her a bit. She used to come in at SEN when you were there. She used to come in
at SEN quite regularly, and as I say, she's as smart as a whip. There's nothing of her.
Do you think you could rate as well as SEN if you weren't back there?
I could try. Get Lydia, maybe get Brian Lake on. I want to see if the first, challenge, for the immunity challenge will be called, Tokyo Bar.
Well, he did it before he went to Tokyo, so it was filmed all before.
Oh, I wonder who's going to win. Jackie Glazier's another one. She's a professional poker player. Right. So I'm interested to see how she goes.
Well, I'm looking forward to you keeping me up to date.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I'm a big Survivor fan.
I know. I remember us doing this last year. The Tour de France is coming to an end. Geraint Thomas, who's Welsh, has won the yellow jersey and has won the whole thing. Now, what's interesting about it is in the dying days of it, Chris Froome, who was the Sky Racing, we mentioned he was getting everything from... They were getting possibly urine, but water and people pushing him, all sorts of things happening. Froome had a terrible time. One time after a stage, he was coming back down to an area where they were sort of going to stay overnight. Right. And he had put on a warm-up jacket over him, and he was on his bike, but coming back, and a police officer tackled him thinking he was like a
terrorist.
Just got in and literally tackled him off his bike.
There seems to
and there was another one where there was farmers protesting and they let tear gas off to disperse the farmers off the road, and the peloton came through the tear gas.
Is this the most incident-filled Tour de France, but without anyone being busted for drugs?
It's absolutely shambolic. I just can't get my head around
attacking players, the cyclists, more so than ever before, as you say. And the other thing, I got to ask, what were the farmers protesting about? These blokes are riding through their farmland on the roads?
Probably, but being French, they probably...
The crowds.
Everything.
Yeah, they like to whinge about everything.
Who knows? They're probably tariffs, I imagine.
On bikes, without
without
breadsticks sticking out of their handlebars.
It was amazing, that bit where Froome got tackled by a police officer. I mean, you couldn't invent that stuff. And the police officer pretended it was mistaken identity, but I wonder. Getting to some of our listeners' questions, Stephen Donahue wrote in, as a Swans fan, how can I blame Kurt Tippett for the Essendon defeat?
You can always somehow blame Kurt Tippett for just about anything, can't you?
Oh, sure. It's like, he's as good a blame as anyone, I reckon. Brett Willowite wrote in, given the poor crowd and boring game at the G on Saturday afternoons, should zones and bibs be introduced immediately to make sure this year's finals are a success?
Maybe they should introduce zones and bibs to the spectators. Yeah. those carrying Jim Beam and Coke cans and those that aren't.
See, it was almost like the AFL got all... I'm loving the AFL spin at the moment, which a lot of the media are picking up on, right? So there was this media AFL panic at the start of the year that the game was ruined, lowest scoring ever, all this, and the game would not fix itself. It would be terrible. So they whipped themselves up into a frenzy, including the AFL. Like, we're looking at 40 different crazy rules for next year, and we're appointing this competition committee full of people you wouldn't trust as far as you could throw them to fix the game. And we've already stuffed up the nominated rock rule, the sliding rule, the protected zone rule. Yeah. We had to get rid of the substitute because that was terrible. Like, so we've got a history of doing bad things on this. But don't worry, here's 40 new rules. And everyone just went...
But we'll still keep those 3 stupid ones.
Yeah. And so everyone went, what the hell are you doing? And lost it. Now the AFL and sections of the media, and I've read quite a few columns and articles of this going, the don't change anything brigade are all conservative and just have got their knickers in a twist. And I'm like, hang on. Now, there is a percentage of fans who just don't change anything ever, right? But the majority of fans are like, don't change things unnecessarily. And that we don't trust you, the AFL, to get this right that often. And we've got a fair few examples, like the ones I just named, of you making the game worse through your tinkering. Exactly. Or the shot clock's the other one I'd add.
Yeah, the shot clock.
So sorry if we're getting a bit concerned when you suddenly say we're looking at 40 rules that we don't fully back you.
We're a bit cynical about
that we're a bit cynical
idea.
And a bit worried about the game. Yeah. Now, the fact is, because of the backlash and because of the game suddenly getting a bit more getting over those early defensive issues and we've had quite a few good games now in the last month. It's been quite a good month of footy, and the ladder is so close, it's an exciting run home. Suddenly, it's looking stupid that they were even looking at 40 thing and all this. So they've toned it down, and now they're going, calm down, everyone. Can't believe how panicked you are.
Yeah,
and it's
don't worry about it.
Well, hang on. Who got everyone... we didn't just decide. We didn't wake up one morning and decide to just go nuts. Yeah. Don't make out like. It's like when men do that thing to women where they go, "Oh, you got all emotional," and it's like, "Yeah, I got emotional because you being an idiot." Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like they just got emotional for no reason. Like, someone got emotional, And this is what's driving me mad. You've all overreacted and you're all idiots. It's like, hang on. We don't trust you. It's not that we overreacted. That we do not trust you on this stuff. You keep trying to push a night grand final on us that we keep telling you we don't want. You keep bringing it up. You try it every year. You tip your toe in the water and you try to soften us up by saying every single year you go, we're thinking about it. It's probably inevitable. You're pretty angry. Okay, we won't do it this year. Yeah. But you'll come back next year and you keep it open. You never say that debate has been had and it's over.
As soon as they use the word inevitable, you know it's
inevitable.
It's
inevitable.
Yeah. But it was like last week. I mean, Gillen caused the big furor by going on saying the radio, saying we're going to have rule changes in a number of non-important games later this year, and the backlash was enormous from everyone. And then the very next day, Steve Hocking comes out and says, they're not rule changes, they're in-play adjustments.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean
and then they say, we won't...
The spin is of grandiose political proportions.
See, that's the thing that just drives me mad about it, is like this acting like fans are idiots.
Yeah.
There are idiot fans. Like, you just need to go online to know that. Yeah. But the actual percentage is actually really just... Most fans know... They look at the media and they know the media all work for each other. They know they all say... They're all, a club. They look at the AFL. They know the AFL's about money, about various other things. Like, they get it, and they get that there are issues around... They're not that worried about just the occasional tinkering, because the AFL have done that forever. No. But they also just, when you start coming out and saying, we're looking at 40 things, they go, quite rightly, well, that's bloody ridiculous. Yeah, now, the fact they've watered them down to almost what appears to be nothing and are now going... The thing that bugs me is they sort of do this thing where it's like if I said to you, I'm going to kill your dog. And you go, what? And I go, I'm not now. I've listened to you.
Yeah, I won't kill you.
And then I act like, why am I getting the credit for not killing your dog? I listened to you. Yeah. And it's like, I don't care about you listening to me. Like, you suggested something insane. Yeah. Like, it's not about you listening to me. Like, why did you even suggest that in the first place? And that's what I just look at the AFL at the moment and go, you're the ones running out nonsense And then you keep turning to us and going, stop panicking. I'm like, we're not panicking. We're just worried that you guys are...
That you have no idea what you're doing.
That you're drinking too much or something. Like, it's amazing. And the fact that there's media now writing stories saying everyone needs to calm down and you've already overreacted. I'm like, you're telling the fans that we overreact.
Yeah.
Like, you guys crowned Melbourne premiers in July. And now you're saying we overreact. Yeah. Like, the biggest overreacting industry in the world is the media. Yeah. And they're like tusking us.
Yeah, that's part of the media's role is to pump things up and
and then turn around and act like other people are crazy.
Yeah, exactly. But when you've got both sides of it doing it, as you say.
Ashley Warner wrote in, with Alistair Lynch dropping an F-bomb on TV, was it the highlight of Sunday's footy matches? Well, it was. Because
the footy was appalling yesterday.
So did you see it when he did it?
No.
I saw the clip later on.
I saw the clip. I didn't see it at the time. And a lot of people have honed in on Dermot's reaction because Dermot heard it.
He did well to keep it together.
And if one bloke knows his way around an F-bomb, it's Dermot, let me tell you.
Dylan Walton wrote, what's been run more shambolically, the White House or AFL House? I think it's a good race.
Or NRL House, or Cricket Australia House, or Swimming Australia House.
My view of AFL House, though, I say this is, it's a bit like, Churchill used to say democracy, it's the worst form of government except for all the others.
Except for the
And I think the same with the AFL. They're the worst sporting administration in Australia except for all the others. Because it's kind of true, right? Like, they're not doing that bad a job comparatively.
Yeah. And Swimming Australia headquarters doesn't even have a pool.
Declan Kilkenny wrote in, do we need more goalposts? More posts equals more goals, therefore more entertainment. I think Declan's about to be the next head of the AFL.
I was about to say, Declan, you're thinking outside the box. Why not have a set on each wing as well?
I'm sure they've thought of it. Because it sort of becomes like a game of, it's like an Auskick session.
Yeah,
They just leave all the Auskick goals up.
And it'd be like circle work, continually goals.
8 balls,
on all four points of the oval.
Yeah.
Which, double the goals, double the entertainment, double the ads, so Tim Warner from Channel 7, he's happy.
Yeah,
Everyone's happy. There's more money for everyone. More money for, LED screens into the players.
Into players. Just put some LED screens on the ground. Make it a bit like, the Running Man.
Yeah, where they have like the big Toyota logo and the AFL logos.
Yeah.
Yeah, make them LED screens.
LED, so the players have to be a bit more careful. Well, put them on the wings so they have to go through the corridor. That's the trick. James Reed wrote, any thoughts on using a few of your late football season podcasts to trial changes for next year? We're going to try and do one sober.
Yeah, that'd be an idea. Which is difficult on a Monday morning.
Matt Leary wrote in, this is an interesting story. Should I be glad that when we were broken into last week, I'm sorry to hear that, Matt, the thieves left my tickets to your Hobart show? Or should you be offended that they didn't deem the tickets worth stealing? I am a bit offended.
Yeah, I'd be a bit offended if I was you. I mean, surely you'd see these are tickets.
These are hot tickets. I can sell.
It ain't Pink. It ain't Katy Perry. But they don't go to Tassie. But I will let one cat out of the bag. Much like Pink, at Titus and Hobart show, he will be doing half the show in a harness above the audience.
Can you imagine? People would be
swinging out over the audience with a microphone in one hand and a bottle of whiskey in the other.
People will look at it and go, oh, that harness is struggling. That harness is not good.
It'd be like it's Cirque du Soleil when the bloke fell down.
If that harness breaks, he's going to kill us all.
We might do.
He's going to take out a few more rows.
We'll do live podcast recordings from a double harness above the crowd.
Oh, God. Oh, no. Final question. Crowform wrote in, how local do you need to be to use a road that is signed local traffic only?
That's a very, very good question.
I thought those signs were just sort of suggestions.
But when it says local traffic only, I've always assumed it meant you've got to live in that street.
or off that street.
Yeah, and that's the only,
like you
roadway.
You have to use it to get to your
it's
home.
the only roadway that connects to your street.
Yeah.
That's about as local as you can be. You can't, or it's frowned upon to use that thoroughfare if you live in the next suburb, put it that way.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, or the next state.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And he's obviously a South Australian. Do they have road signs in South Australia? They've had them since traffic lights, I think.
I like that.
Probably the mid-70s.
Do they have road signs? Yeah, they have road signs. Okay. Like, it's not the Wild West. What's your image of South? You were there like last year.
Yeah, I know, but I remember when we walked into the Arca Bar, you had to go through those swinging saloon doors.
Oh, it has got a touch of like a Western bar.
I love the Arca Bar. It's just, you expect to see Cold Chisel in their prime. Just walk out of the dressing room with Barnesy wearing a Japanese headband and carrying a bottle of vodka.
The best when we were at the Queensland, the sit-down comedy festivals, I came off stage and you go out this little tiny bit behind a curtain, and then to get off you have to walk out, and it goes in front of the exit off the stage. Yeah. You step out in front of the doors to the women's and men's toilets. So I come off stage and the crowd of the show's finished, so they're all going to the bathroom. So for about 5 minutes, I'm walking through a crowd of people trying to get to the toilet.
Dodging women trying to get
just come off the stage.
And they're queuing up the toilets. You go, oh, yeah.
And it was just it was very awkward. Like,
and nobody's there to get a book signed. They're just busting for a piss.
No one's glad to see you. They're like, good show, mate, but can you get out of the way?
Yeah, that might be next time go to Brisbane.
It wasn't glamorous showbiz, is all I'm saying.
And it wasn't. I mean, there's some other place where you walk off stage and out the stage door and it goes straight out into the street and then it shuts behind you and you can't even get back into the building, and it's dark.
I like to have the chopper waiting with the rotor going. That's what I'm going to demand one day. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back later on in the week.
Well, hang on, before
we got a T-shirt. Sorry. T-shirt? Yeah, you go.
Can we go with James Reed? He's suggesting that in our late footy season podcast, we'll trial some changes.
Well done, James.
For next year's podcast.
Excellent.
Maybe we'll try a podcast with new hosts without us. That'd be easy.
Brian Lake's free.
We'll do one tomorrow.
Brian Lake and Barry Hall. The Brian Lake and Barry Hall hour.
And then just let them punch on at the end.
I'll talk to you next week.